Hey everybody, today I am getting on the Christmas card bandwagon as everybody is doing their Christmas card demos and videos and posting all their fun, colorful pictures of what they've been doing artistically as far as that goes. So I wanted to join in the fun, but I'm not doing the traditional Christmas card Christmas trees and snowy mountains and wreaths and bows and mistletoe and all of that. I decided to show you guys what I did for giving it a little bit more of a Southwest kind of flair. And I thought it was really fun and maybe you'd like to try it. So that being said, starting off, where do you get the card to paint on? And you can get them. This is Strathmore. They are watercolor paper cards. There's 20 with the envelopes with deckled edge. They're really cute. However, the paper buckles when you paint watercolor on it quite a bit. So I don't like that. It's a lower grade paper. Strathmore makes different levels of paper and I don't like that. So I decided to use the paper that I was gifted with. I did tell you in my trading card video that I found a pack of paper in the parking lot at my job. I waited the 90 days and I was blessed with a whole pack of this stuff, which I don't really use very much, but I found a use for it in those trading cards and now in these greeting cards. So feel free if you have, already, or if you just want to avoid the extra work, you can go out and buy watercolor paper 5x7 cards. These are acid free. I don't know, probably other brands make them as well, but I just happen to have had this one for many, many years, so I pulled it out to show you. So let's get started. This is a quarter sheet of that Strathmore paper. Now I've broken it down and I wanted to show you how with the smaller piece, this piece is kind of ruined because this sticker won't come off, but I'm going to show you how to divide it without using a paper cutter because, as you know, those big sheets won't fit in a paper cutter. So I thought maybe I could use this I'll probably use it for a 4x6. So let's just make a mark about let's do 4.5. That's about as far as I could go out. 4.5, little tiny mark. And I'm just gonna draw a little light line. That'll be cut off, so I'm not worried about it. But that's where I want to create my fold. So what I'll do is come close to that. It's nice and straight. And you can see it doesn't fold super easy, so I've got a butter knife here with a nice smooth edge. I don't want this rough stuff. It'll mar the paper a little bit more. But what I do is I run that butter knife up and down. Then I'll fold it the other way. Run it up and down. And get a nice fold going. Nice flat. I learned this years ago when I first started, and it's been handy for me, so hopefully that's enough. But you can kind of work it back and forth. Then you're going to start at the top, make a little tear, and then you're going to pull away as you come down, and that's going to be cleaned up with my paper cutter. So it's not the cleanest line, but that's how I do it, and it works pretty well. So I'm going to put that aside because this is not the one I'm using. I'm using this quarter sheet. And what I'm going to do is see if this big heavy box cutter will be supported by my easel. This is a absolutely great paper cutter. It's a doll and it is really heavy. It's got all your measurements, business cards, different A5, A6, you know, all the ones. So what I'm going to do with this is, because it's clearly not the right size, I want it to be 7 inches wide because it's a 5x7 card. So I'm going to find my 7. There's 6 and there's 7. Line it up with that. That was not very graceful because you have to push down and my easel doesn't stay. Let's try that again. I'll tighten up my easel. I don't know if that's going to work either. Then, preserving this deckled edge, I'm going to come to the tin and try that again without moving my easel. Okay, so here's my little piece of paper that's not quite the right side, but I've trimmed the edges here. I want to trim this top part. We're going to keep this deckled edge. Make sure you don't cut that part off when you trim it down to a 10. Oh, nope. See, I almost did it, didn't I? We're going 10 right there and trimming that down. Getting rid of that, but I don't throw them away because they make great little swatch papers when I'm testing my color. So now I'm going to come to the 7 and cut off that excess. I've got a 5x7 or a 10x7. Get rid of this thing. Oh, it's so heavy. Okay, now we've got our piece of paper. All you have to do, next step, is get your butter knife. And I always start in the middle and go out. And I work that back and forth. So it doesn't stay quite as open. All right, so there's your, oh, look at me. I did that so crooked. I think I cut it crooked. I'm going to trim that up later. Not a big deal, but yeah, there's the handmade card. But I have my little painting drawn out here, ready to paint. This is all done, of course, and I'm not worried about the pencil line because we're going to outline. So let's get started. This is going to be fun. I've got my artist tape here. I am going to just tape it down so it's not moving all over the place. Don't need to tape all around it, just tape the upper and lower. And I'm just going to be working with a 4 round and probably come in with some detail work with the 2. These are Princeton. This is 450 Princeton. This is a Velvetouch. Stickers covering it. 6. I could use a 6 for bigger areas. Heritage. Heritage 4050. And I also have a little Utrecht #1 round for even smaller details. So that is what I'm going to be starting with. I think I'll go ahead and start with the #6. And I am just going to mix up Opera Rose. I love the Opera Rose. And we're going to get some Cobalt Teal Blue ready to go. And it's kind of winging it here. I like the leaf green. I think that's fun. Cobalt blue. And I'm separating them. Can mix on the paper because the fun part of this is that we're going to do some charging in of the color, and that is simply putting down wet water, putting down water or a color. So there's slight tint in that. It's a cobalt blue still on my brush. So you don't want it too wet where there's just a bunch of puddling going on, but you want it wet enough where the water's or the paint's going to flow into it. So let's rinse my brush a little bit, and I'm going to start off with some pink, some of that Opera Rose, which is a Winsor & Newton color. And I did not rinse my brush. I just went straight back in, and I think what I want to grab too is a little bit of Amethyst Genuine, which is a, this almost looks Eastery. I think I want to add some green so it kind of tones that down a little bit. Let's go with some sap green up here too. I've got leaf green and sap green, and green is going to neutralize that pink a little bit. And let's go for some coral. That's maybe just a bit too bright. So I rinsed my brush, and I can kind of move it around. I want to be careful not to do that too much because you lose that, you lose the magic when you start moving it around too much. But I felt like that was a little too bright, so I wanted to fix it. And that was done by lifting it off with a thirsty brush. Now, got a little bit of fuzz in there. Well, this isn't very pretty. This is not very pretty. Okay, well, I kind of blew it on that little ear. And I say, I say ear because these are called bunny ear cactuses. I forgot to mention that. So that little ear, I just felt like that wasn't working so well. So I'm going to go back and just drop in. I lifted out a bunch of that color that was already on there because I just didn't like where that was headed. So more green. And I'm gonna fuss with this a little bit because I want this guy to look a little bit better. And so now I'm just gonna charge in a little bit of water. So look at that, that actually is looking pretty cool. So charging in water will create intentional blossoms. Charge in a little bit of that amethyst. Amethyst Genuine is a very granulating color, so it'll give us a little texture in there. And I'm also going to use titanium white. And I'm going to drop that in. That'll just kind of mute those colors a little bit, so I do like that. And we can also come back to that. So I'm going to leave that alone and move on to, let's go, I don't want to go right next to that guy because it'll explode into this area. So let's move to the middle. And this time I'm going to start with the leaf green and sap. And pretty watery there. You can see it flowing. Got my green. I'm going to add a little bit of the cobalt blue. And just kind of touching instead of stroking so much. Maybe around the edges you can stroke just to kind of fill in. Just touching, not stroking. Grab some of that titanium white. I'm going to drop in a little bit of cobalt blue with the opera. I'm seeing this is starting to settle here. It's going to push back into what's drier up at the top. So I'm just, with a thirsty brush, coming in and soaking up some of that water. I think I want to add a little bit of Hansa. Yeah, that's a little too bright. How about a little bit of raw sienna? That's better. I want to get a little bit more of a Southwest feel here rather than an Easter feel. Now, one thing about the Strathmore paper, it really lifts easily, which is great for some things. I'm going to add a little bit of opera to that. Grade it down just a smidge. Look how that thicker paint just kind of doesn't spread as far. Cobalt teal, come here. More muted because there's green in that teal. Kind of lifting out as well. Mostly this is kind of going on a feeling. That looks fun. This time I'm adding the color down first and just kind of letting it flow. Moving it around. And I kind of did that on purpose. Broke the little barrier, and then the paint from next door flowed into this little section. So don't be afraid to experiment with different colors here. This is quite a bit different than what I started with, but when I add the final little touches, I can do more of the red and send it off into more of a Christmassy direction, or you could just have fun and use it for a generic card. It doesn't have to be for Christmas. And we'll just see what happens in the end. You never quite know what's going to happen. That's the fun of it. So I'm going to go over here. A little bit wet. I'm going to get most of that off, but I want to do a little more of the cobalt teal blue and then come into that with some of these other colors. So each little bunny ear doesn't have to be the same as the other, so just play. I'm liking the green in that. A little bit of opera would be nice. And some of that titanium white got a little dirtied up, but that's okay too. And as this dries, you can touch in thicker paint and it won't spread as much. If the paint that's on your brush is more watery than what's on your paper, it's going to push away everything that's on the paper. Not everything, but you know what I mean. So work with the paint as long as it's still damp. You just have to know the different characteristics, I guess. You've got different levels of moisture. Adding some coral, that's pretty thick, so it's not going to spread as far. If I watered it down, it will spread much further. It does need a little bit more water, but we can add a little bit more paint and thicken it up. So just touching in. Some little dots of red here and there. And this one up here, that one's pretty dry. It's not going to spread nearly as much, so it could even stand to be a little bit more diluted, just so it doesn't look so much like a dot. Okay, like that. And we're going to come down to this guy. Again with the teal, cobalt teal blue, and some green, a little amethyst, a little more blue down here. And so on and so forth until you're finished with your ears. If you don't have these colors, use what you have already and experiment. Don't wait till you have the right supplies. Just use what you have and get started. I want a little bit more of that leaf green. Look how pretty that is. I don't want to touch that anymore until it dries a little bit, and then I'll dab in some of those cobalt or coral colors. And a little bit more of that cobalt teal blue. Daniel Smith color, by the way. And I'm adding some pink in there, some of that rose. A little bit of blue down at the base. In my head, I'm thinking of where the shadows might be too. where it would be brighter would be up toward where the light would be. Lift out that little petal. And then I think I'll put a little bit more of that opera rose up here. And we're gonna plop in a little bit of that here and there. I don't know if you could see that, but I had a bunch of water up here on my ferrule and it just dropped right in. And put a bunch more water on the paper, which not a big deal, but it's something, sometimes you don't want that to happen. I want it to happen when I plan on doing it, not when it's unexpected. I think I'm safe to come, let's do this one. Let's do that one, that little guy. And that little opera rose touch kind of muted the brightness, which was intentional. If you know your color wheel, you know which colors are gonna neutralize the others, it really helps. I'm gonna drop in some water up here, kind of get that flowing around a little bit better. I'm gonna come here with my color already on my brush, just a very juicy, oops. Juicy mix of that. See how much water is in there, so I can just kind of guide that color with the water as I come down. And where there's a little bit of red, that's going to mute that green out. I think this is cute. And I'm going to come in here with some more wet water and just let that flow together so there's a lost edge. And I'm just grabbing randomly, no plan. Just letting watercolor do what watercolor does, and that is mix itself on your paper. You just have to do the choosing of the colors and then trust that they are going to create something beautiful. And I like that combination of the opera rose with the cobalt teal blue. It just kind of mutes it a little bit. And then when it settles, it separates and there's a really great variegation of color. We're almost done. Look at that. I like how that's looking too. So let's come up here with some brighter. I'm going to come with that cobalt teal again. And a little bit of the leaf green was plopped in there. And I just rinsed my brush there and spreading out that color. And picking up any excess that's there that isn't necessary. There's a pretty green right there. Didn't add any water to that one first. I'm going to come back in with some water and move it around. Switching to my number 2 round, I'm going to get a thicker mixture on my brush here. I don't want it to be too heavy though, but I want to come and start kind of placing some of those. We're going to come back in with an acrylic marker as well. And that'll help them to stand out a little bit more, but for right now I'm just adding a couple. And I want to do some of that coral too. That's a pretty color. That's a Daniel Smith color. It's beautiful. And that's giving us the red and green look that I wanted for this southwesty Christmassy cactus. Those are too wet. This one is a little bit wet, but the paint's thick enough that it's not going too far. And when I come back over, I'm going over the top with just a little bit more intense color to try. You could do like a acrylic marker for this too. I think they have red. I didn't think to get that. I was just out at the art supply store. I got other colors. Let's see how that does. It's still a little wet, but up at the top it's drier, so I'm just gonna... Right, isn't that fun? Okay, let's let it dry, and we'll come back and do some finishing touches. Okay, this is nice and dry, and I've got this Molotow One for All 1 millimeter. Probably could use a smaller tip. Like I said, I forgot to grab one of these when I was out at the art supply store, and this one's getting pretty low. You have to really shake them up. And I've got this little scrap paper here to prime it on. But I'm going to start with this Kuretake, I think that's how you say it, black marker. And what I want to do here is just go ahead and outline my cactus. So here we go. So now we're going to put in some of the stickery. They've got some spikes just here and there with the black, because I'm going to come in with some other color too and add some of those pokey spikes. come in with this little glitter pen, Jelly Roll Metallic. This is red. Make sure it's flowing before I start, and then I can add some of these and come in and add some there. And again, try not to get carried away. Gold. Just for variety, add a couple of different colors. Again, try not to get carried away. Here's our little Molotow. And you can come right over the top of some of those previous titanium white and just dot that in. I'm finding I have to keep pumping on this, but it's because it's running out of ink. So these just make this pop because they stay really white and they sit right on top of the paper. Hey, if you guys like this video and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And also, don't forget to give this video a like. It really helps helps my channel get out there and where more people can see what I'm doing. So I really appreciate that. And I think we're just about done. I need some bigger marks in there. Boopity boop bitty boo. Merry Christmas to you. Okay, only thing left to do is sign. But this one, because it is that fun little whimsical, I could choose any little spot to sign my name to. It doesn't have to be straight across the bottom. It can be, you know, along one of these edges. So that's just what I'm going to do. And I'm going to sign it in ink. And just my first initial on these, I kind of like it better that way when it's these little ones. I just put my first initial, my little fish, and my last name. And last but not least, you can write on the back the year and, you know, your name and call it good. And then this is something that they can frame. It's a frameable card. So I didn't do it on here, but I plan to write original on there so they don't think that this is a print or a reproduction. So that would be important to note. So happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all of that good stuff. Have fun with this. This is really a fun way to gift the people in your life with something from you, something from your heart that you didn't go out and stress and strain to think about that perfect gift. This is a part of you and it comes from the heart, and that is a very special gift indeed. So have a great one, you guys. Happy painting. Take care. Bye-bye.